So what's happening is we're going through empire change. Throughout all of history, there's been a change of empires where empires rise and fall. Now, all empires up until this point have been geographically bound. This empire shift is a different one. We're moving from what I would call geographical ideas into a digital environment. So what's happening is, if you imagine as a concept that we have dirt and we have cloud, and cloud represents digital using AI, having a business that is unrestricted by geography, and dirt represents the old way, industrial revolution. So anyone who's operating in the cloud knows that this whole other world exists. Anyone who's in geography land is sitting there going, life's getting harder. So we have two societies living on top of each other, cloud society and dirt society.
Pretty much all of the businesses that I'm invested in, or the investments that I've done that are nothing to do with me, are all tech and AI. So for example, investing with yourself, just looking at it, it's just an obvious. You just look at tech and AI. I think that's a huge opportunity. I think the wealth gap in the UK splitting is not just an opportunity, it's a threat.
Running a marathon race is the traditional schooling system, get a job, all of that sort of stuff. Being on a bicycle is having your own business that has technology and can do anything from anywhere. Getting in a car represents using artificial intelligence and having most of your employees be algorithms. And you can do, with a 10-person team, you can do 5 to 10 million pretty easily. Now that's being in the car, which is earning more money in a week than most people earn in a year. And that's basically what's happening, is that you get plenty of smart people who are running, right? They've got a high IQ and they're, lovely people and all of that, but they're not leveraging technology. And you get plenty of people who are leveraging some technology and they're way out ahead. And then you get some people who are just jumping in a car and they're fully leveraging technology.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of 6 Rounds on the Blueprint podcast. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by a very special guest. This gentleman is a worldwide global entrepreneur. He has started, systemized and scaled and sold businesses of all different shapes and sizes. He is a multiple award-winning author. He's also invested in and started and bought and sold multiple different companies. He's been a mentor of mine for over a decade. He's a long-standing friend. And today we're going to go behind the scenes and do 6 round with my good friend, Mr. Daniel Priestley.
How am I going to live up to that? That sounds very elaborate.
Sounds good. Let's see how you do. First round.
First round. Okay. Should people write a book? Is that a good thing to do?
You've written lots of books, which I've read all of them, went on the journey. In fact, that was how I first ever heard of you. I remember flicking through Audible, I think it was, and there was one called The Entrepreneur's Journey. The
Entrepreneur Revolution.
Entrepreneur Revolution. And I thought, wow, I want to be an entrepreneur. I'll have listened to that. And then 10 years later, I went on and wrote a book. And yeah, I think there's a soundbite that you use that sold it to me, which is
The book that changes your life is not one you read, it's one you write.
The book that changes your life is not the one you read, it's the one you write. Absolutely. And when you go through that creative process, I remember we were chatting at some point, and you said you think you're the expert on a topic, which is why we are key people of influences, things like that. But you won't actually understand the intricacies until you actually sit down and write it.
There's something about writing that just formalizes it, locks it in, puts it in cement. The funny thing, I once bought an Instagram account that was run by someone who reviewed business books. And she basically read a new business book every week, maybe 2 a week, and she reviewed them. And she reached out to me and said, I'm going to close it down because it's not making any money. And I thought to myself, how are you reading a business book every week and you haven't figured out how the money gets made? And then I thought, you know what? I know plenty of people who read plenty of books and don't necessarily succeed as much as they'd like to. It's very rare to meet an author who's written a book and they don't tell you about how that book changed their life in some way.
And I think the important thing there, especially when you talk about making money, is you've got to manage people have got to have their expectations well managed, because a lot of people talk to me about speaking events or doing a podcast and they're like, would you recommend it? If it's part of an ecosystem, 100%, you can't live without it.
That's a great point. The book,
if you think you're going to make 100 grand a week on it, direct sales.
Not direct sales, no. The book is not there to make any money itself. Like, book royalties are there to just reinvest back into the growth of the book. It's the relationship engine. When I first moved to London, I had a private members club membership in London. I used to invite people to come and meet me at this club, and I'd have 5, 6, 7 meetings a day. If I had a spare day, I'd just fill it full of meeting new people. And I would always buy coffee and all of that sort of stuff. By the end of the day, average was about £10 to £15 per meeting, um, to meet 5 or 6 people. So you meet 6 people and it's 70 quid to sign off on the end of the day. And I remember thinking, gee, if I had just sent books out to everyone, A, I'd have my day free, and B, I would meet 7 people for less, for a cheaper price. So I remember thinking the book is actually just a relationship engine. It's a way of just meeting people you'd never normally meet, and you can meet them anywhere in the world.
And a sales team that are on the road for free for you, that people are paying 15 quid to speak to your sales team.
Yeah, perfectly on brand. So I think the key is that you have to write a book with that intention. The intention has to be, I'm going to give away 1,000 copies every year, and I'm going to put 1,000 copies into people's hands, people I would love to meet but don't have time to meet. I'm going to use the book as a way to create relationships that end up doing business of some sort. So I'm not going to write some random book. I'm going to write a book that actually generates interest in what I'm doing, and away you go. Uh, Great example, Score app, our software. We got to the point where we had product market fit, and then as soon as we had product market fit and lots of raving testimonials and all that sort of stuff, I'd been out talking about Score app for a year, and I thought, okay, time to write a little book about it. So I wrote this book called Scorecard Marketing. I printed 10,000 copies. We sponsored some events. We ran some ads, gave away 10,000 copies. Worked out at about £50,000 to do that, to just give away 10,000 copies. And it generated, we can track back £50,000 per month worth of recurring revenue from that activity. So people read the book, subscribed to the software, and they're still subscribed to the software. So it's like a 12x return on that particular activity.
And just having that high quality, and it's repurposable. So you have that high quality content out there. You finally understand what your product is that you want to sell. If you write a book in the right way, it's high value for the reader, so they actually finish it. They then recommend it to other people, but actually you've sold your product through the process. So I'm sure I would have ended up doing KPI maybe 15 years ago off the back of reading the book, understanding the blueprint, being like, that's exactly what I need. And then it's like, well, how do I get there? And that's the implementation. And one of the questions I always get is, when people are writing books or doing content, they say, how open should I be? How transparent should I be? And I remember you saying, well, in fact, it'd be interesting to revisit the question and we'll see if you say the same thing. But when people say that about when I'm writing a book or putting stuff out for free, how open should I be? I don't want to give it all away for free if I'm then going to charge them 20 grand for a product. What's your rule of thumb of when you're delivering stuff, writing books?
My very basic low resolution view is give it all away for free. I believe fundamentally you should give ideas away and charge for implementation of ideas. So the business should be to implement ideas, to actually get things done, but the ideas should be out there. So I'm not a big believer in holding much back. I've got an exception to that rule, but I'll come to that. I think the second thing is that you put everything you've got into a book, and it makes space in your head for new, better ideas, advanced stuff to come through. So you kind of like, you're mentally holding on to this stuff, and then you release it into a book, and new stuff comes. Every single time I've written a book, I've thought that's the last book I'm going to write, and then new ideas come through.
I remember you said to me, like back in the day, that it actually is part of your blueprint. It marks a time in your life. When you're at a time of your life and you write your book, I feel the same about the podcast. I could go back 200 episodes and listen to where I was at that time, or even blueprints. So it carves that sort of in stone.
Yeah, the exception I have is where the book then goes all over the place and you're trying to put too much into the book from the reader's perspective. So it's not that you're trying to hold back, but you are trying to create a steel thread for the reader. So, I've got a book, Entrepreneur Revolution, which the new version's out, and I've got Key Person of Influence. The introduction for Key Person of Influence was actually Entrepreneur Revolution. So I wrote 8,000, 9,000 words about the times that we're in when I was writing my first book. And then I transitioned into becoming a key person of influence. And when I read through it, I just felt it was just taking the reader in two different directions. One direction was, we're living in amazing times and it's an incredible time to be an entrepreneur. The other direction was, you need to build a personal brand and be a key person of influence in your industry. And I didn't want to get rid of 9,000 words, I think it was, but I was just taking people in, it was two different directions. I ended up cutting out 9,000 words and just starting the book strong with key person of influence. It wasn't because I was holding back ideas. It was because I wanted it to be easy for the reader to understand one message. And what ended up happening is then my next book was Entrepreneur Revolution. So I turned that into a separate book.
And people who listen and go through that process. So with regards to the question about how much do you give away, we actually talked about this in the boardroom the other day on Property Entrepreneur. And I said to somebody, people pay us 40 or 50 grand a year as a client and we tell them what to do and they still don't do it.
Mhm.
So like you can give it away for free. The idea is 10 a penny. It's nothing. Also, whilst you've obviously had the experience with it, other people will struggle with getting that balance because some books should be a blog. You know, somebody should they drag out a concept and actually you read the front and back page and you get it. Other books become textbooks and actually you sit down to read it. There's been a few of them that I've got that I want to read, but they're so detailed and so they lose me.
Yes.
Because they're academic. And that's not an easy sweet spot, is it? It's like, what is the concept? Less is more.
Yeah, the idea, I think, is a thought leadership book. So a thought leadership book is really telling people what they should be doing differently, why they should do it differently, what are the big key pillars or the big key principles that they need to understand in order to go on that journey. So you're basically trying to convince someone to go on a journey they may not have wanted to go on. I really like it. So a textbook is, you already know what you want and you're trying to read through a do-it-yourself manual. A thought leadership book is
Like a concept, a
introducing you
movement,
to an
like
idea that you didn't even know you wanted.
Yeah.
But then it's like, that makes so much sense. So a great example is like start with why. Oh, wait a second, I need to put purpose at the heart, especially for corporate, right? Corporate, that book wasn't newsworthy for entrepreneurs because we all start with why. But for corporate, who like they were totally disconnected from that idea, suddenly this guy comes along and says, you need to introduce purpose at the heart of the organization. Whoa,
what was that Simon Sinek?
Simon Sinek, yeah.
What would you think of Simon Sinek as a KPI?
Yeah, I mean, he's nailed it. He's got the book out
Is he
there.
like an academic? Is he a practitioner?
I think he was originally a consultant and he, is a business consultant and doing corporate consulting and corporate speaking. And then he wrote Start With Why, and then he got a TED Talk. The TED Talk was one of the biggest TED Talks ever. The book hit a home run. It became a corporate must-have.
Yeah.
And then he's got a corporate consulting business that goes in and does, tens of millions worth of corporate consulting for the biggest brands in the world. He's nailed it as a key person of influence.
Yeah,
and
fair play to him.
And he's got a
huge profile.
Yeah, he gives the ideas away for free, and then he has a corporate consulting business to implement those ideas.
Top tips to finish for people who are thinking about writing a book or approaching writing a book?
So there's a process for doing it. You need to go through a process, right? So it's like if you get the process right, it's a paint by numbers process. There's something you do with the introduction. There's something you do with the opening of the book. You should be.
There's a blueprint.
There's a blueprint.
Everything has a blueprint.
Right? Everything has a
Exactly.
blueprint. There's a framework. You follow the framework. What you do not want to do is sit down and start writing.
Yeah,
That's a
I've
block.
read a load of books. I'm sure I can write one.
That's a
It's
block.
very different experience.
Very different. So the key thing is there is a process. You follow the process and you paint by numbers. You should basically never have more than about 1,500 words to write that isn't like already mapped out and planned where it fits in the overall book. So it's the planning phase that makes it work. And then the other big tip is only write a book if you intend to give away 1,000 copies per year or more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used Rethink Press, one of your companies, to do mine. And my final decision for those who listened to it was a quote, a guy called Wayne Dyer, who's like quite a spiritual guy. He said, he has a quote which says, "Don't die with your music inside you." And when I sat down to write a book, I was going to write the blueprint book. I thought, do you know what? If I do die at the end of writing this book, I don't want to have left another business book. I want to leave something that's I'm passionate about. And that was Karma Credits, which was all about, the law of the universe and things like that. Nice one to kick us off. Let's go with, let's spice it up a bit. Let's go with our times. So I don't want to start getting any sort of reputation that I'm anti-UK. But I've spoke quite critically about the UK in recent months, even the last year. The economy's just flatlining. Politically, we've got no idea where we're going. I'm spending more and more time in other countries, Bali, Dubai. I'm looking at what the other countries are doing, India, looking at all these upcoming economies. And then I drive through London today. As soon as I came into London, my call cut off. I couldn't get any Wi-Fi. I sat in traffic for an hour. I'm looking out the window and people didn't look like they're loving their life. And I just
And that's on a sunny day.
Yeah, that's on a sunny day. And I just thought, where are we? I'd be interested to know what this is just because of today's journey. What's your interest? What's the appeal of London? Why do people still flock here year on year? What's the economy doing? Where are we in our time and our generation? What's it going to be like for our kids? What's your view?
So what's happening is we're going through empire change. This is my view, right? So throughout all of history, there's been a change of empires where empires rise and fall, and you have the peak of the Roman Empire, and then collapses, and the Ottoman Empire, and British Empire. So there's all these empires. Now, all empires up until this point have been geographically bound. So we know the empire by geography. They take over geographies. They actually take over land, and they march soldiers onto land and try and take bigger and bigger chunks of land. This empire shift is a different one. We're moving from what I would call geographical ideas or geographically based businesses, geographically based lifestyles into a digital environment. So what's happening is, if you imagine as a concept that we have dirt and we have cloud, and cloud represents digital. Cloud is being online, being digital, all of that sort of stuff, using AI, having a business that is unrestricted by geography, having a life that's unrestricted by geography. And dirt represents the old way, industrial revolution. I live where I live because I work down the road. In order for me to go to work, I have to turn up somewhere. In order for me to sell to someone, they have to live in a particular place. So that is, you're very much geographically tied in. So what's happening is that the empire called the cloud empire is now just booming. It's just taking off. Anyone who's in the cloud knows what it feels like to have 100 new signups a day, to have people in 150 countries who buy your stuff, to have employees in 14 different countries around the world, and that's effortless. So anyone who's operating in the cloud knows that this whole other world exists. Anyone who's in geography land is sitting there going, life's getting harder. There's less and less opportunity. There's less money. I feel like I'm constrained. So we have two societies living on top of each other, cloud society and dirt society, and they're radically moving apart.
And what's the split on that? As in, is it 80% of the people who are walking around London doing their 40 hours a week for 40 years
So what's
and
happened
20% are making it through? Or is it?
in the last 20 years, the idea of digital and the idea of cloud was real, but not many people were doing it. There were very few actual digital entrepreneurs. If you were to go and survey people and say, like, do you run your business in the cloud? Do you have customers do you actually have customers in 100 countries? Do you actually have employees in 10 countries? Do you actually generate all your business, and can people genuinely just pay you at any time, day or night? Most people say, oh, I'm moving towards that, but it's not the reality right now for the last 20 years. Then COVID comes along and everyone had to make that shift. Some people successfully made the shift. Some people didn't make the shift. Some people sitting at home watching Netflix,
Wonder what happens when we
wondering
come
what
back.
happened, right? But what happened in that time is the S curve, adoption curve happened. So there's the long build up
Yeah.
and then pop. So where we are now is like probably 10-15% of the population are in cloudland, and the other 65-70% of the population are still scratching their
Move
heads.
forward another 20 years. So completely get that. I mean, we've run a physical, Property Entrepreneur's been a physical training business for 11 years. We're now starting to move stuff online, and it's just hockey sticking. And you
Yep.
can't believe that what you charge in a physical room with teas and coffees and lunch for 15 grand is being sold online for 13 grand, and people are snapping it up. And you're like, there's no friction, there's no infrastructure, there's no travel.
People prefer it.
People see it's a convenience.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy. Go forward another 20 years, where does that end up?
We end up with a two-speed economy, and the two-speed economy, if you imagine two friends,
And is this global we're talking about? Or
Yeah.
UK? Global.
Yeah, it's definitely global, because right now there's many billionaires in India, and there's many billionaires living in Dubai.
And many billionaires in their teens, like the young billionaires coming up now.
There's actually not. There's actually not so many billionaires under 30.
I suppose, is it really?
Yeah, it was at the very beginning of social and mobile. We saw a lot of young people doing that, but because a bunch of young people made a success of it, they recognize young talent when they see it and they buy it really
Okay.
fast, right? So they kill it off early.
Maybe it's just polarizing, but I just see the word billionaire used to be a niche term.
So-
Now it's
well, there's less than 3,000 of them. There's still not many of them, but there's a lot of young millionaires. There's a lot of high income earners who live and work.
all these
from
cool
anywhere.
cats going over to Dubai, like, and
Yeah.
the crypto, all the guys who made the money in crypto.
What's very common is people who earn 250 grand a year living and working from anywhere. That's happening a lot more than ever before. And there's a lot of people under 30 who earn hundreds of thousands a year as an income wherever they are, and they don't have to be anywhere in particular. There's a lot of digital nomads and those sorts of things. But the two-speed economy is if you've ever spent time in India, you'll see that some of the richest people in the world live there and some of the poorest people in the world live there. It's a two-speed economy. Dubai is a bit of a two-speed economy. You've got some of the richest people living right on top of some of the poorest people. Um, so what happens globally, actually, San Francisco is a two-speed economy. You've got tent cities of people camped out in the street, and you've got billionaires arriving in helicopters. So um, what's happening is if you had a marathon race that everyone had to run 26 miles, and everyone sets off, and a few people start getting on bicycles, and they're just flying ahead, and then a couple of people start jumping in taxis, and they're really flying ahead. So running a marathon race is the traditional schooling system, get a job, all of that sort of stuff. Being on a bicycle is having your own business that has technology and can do anything from anywhere. Getting in a car represents using artificial intelligence and having most of your employees be algorithms, where you're using media, tech, data, proprietary layers on top of AI. So you just right in that world, and you can do with a 10-person team, you can do 5 to 10 million pretty easily. Now that's being in the car, which is earning more money in a week than most people earn in a year. And that's basically what's happening is that you get plenty of smart people who are running, right? They've got a high IQ and they're, lovely people and all of that, but they're not leveraging technology. And you get plenty of people who are leveraging some technology and they're way out ahead. And then you get some people who are just jumping in a car and they're fully leveraging technology.
So a couple of thoughts on that. Somebody said to me the other day, if you're that anti-UK and you think it's so good elsewhere, why do you stay? And my response was, because unfortunately, as sad as it is to say, it actually works really well for me because my view is that the wealth gap in the UK is going to get bigger and bigger. The
Hmm.
people who've got money and are buying the assets and owning the companies, they're still making money and
Hmm.
owning the wealth. And actually, for someone like me, it works really well. But I can just see more and more people now sliding into that slower speed economy.
Yeah, that's
Would
true.
you say that you're seeing the wealth gap increase in line with the two speed
Eh,
economies,
Um,
UK
yeah,
specifically?
yeah, in the UK specifically, we've done some really dumb things. Like we moved corporate tax from 19 to 25%. So we've taken like London on paper should be the tech hub of the world. It should be it should be one of the top technology hubs. You've got major universities here. You've got an amazing time zone. You've got a history. You've got a place that a lot of smart people want to live. You've got all sorts of great things that go for London. You've got an amazing legal and accounting infrastructure and like all of that sort of London centric stuff. Um, but as soon as you start moving corporate tax from 19 to 25% and increasing capital gains tax, all of that sort of stuff starts to mean that plenty of smart people just will not come and set up their companies here. They're not going to create the opportunities of tomorrow in this zone. So you miss out on a bunch of people who will now set up in Jersey, or they'll set up in Dubai, or
I think the UK at the minute is like number two in the world for AI. I think, isn't it?
it is, yeah,
And
AI
do,
talent, all sorts of talent,
do you think they'll
right?
bring in any tax break? Like it depends who the government comes into
Well,
government. But if you want to own that space, we need a bit of a break for that, don't you?
the government is completely unaware of this shift that's happening, or they're mostly unaware. They're a little bit aware of it. But, like, for example, every government starts their name with their geography. The British government, the London City Council, the Singaporean government, right? So they're all like giving you the geographical term first. That's how much it's ingrained in their head that they're geography based. Now, what they're not doing is they're not realizing, hey, wait a second, the most high income earning people in the world right now, they don't even think geography at all. So if they were smart, if the UK government was smart, they'd set up um, economic zones within the country. So if they want to like stimulate Liverpool, for example, they create a tech hub in Liverpool. They build a technology park. They basically say if you've got 10 employees in Liverpool, if you've got executive level meetings happening in Liverpool, if you've got a director who lives within this certain zone as their primary residence, you get to pay 15% tax in that economic zone. So suddenly, a lot of people start going, actually, I might start my business and get going in Liverpool and then move to London or something like
Do you think
that.
the UK economy, before we move on, do you think the UK economy is going to flatline? Do you think it's going to go up? Do you think it's going to go down over the next 10 years?
It's going to be two economies. The problem is, well, look, the UK government is a mess, right? So we now spend 128 billion a year on interest payments. That's 12% of our budget is interest payments. Imagine you had a friend who earns 50 grand a year and spends 6,000 just keeping the credit card.
Well, I literally said to someone the other day, the UK is the equivalent of somebody who's on a credit card. Like,
Yeah.
you're just in the hole. At best, you maintain it.
And the problem is both sides of government do the same thing, which any increases in tax or any increases in revenues that they can get, they leverage that to the hilt, right? Everyone's incentivized to increase the debt, and then they go and spend it on assets that don't produce, or they spend it on things that don't produce.
But even while there's that transition and the economy is split, what's that going to look like at a macro level for the whole? Because we are still going to be one economy, one society.
Well, we won't. We're not one economy and one society. If you try and tax the rich, they'll just move, right? Because there comes a point, you're saying, oh yeah, the UK will work for me. There comes a point where you do move your company overseas and you start having an international structure for all your online stuff. So you just move your online stuff to Jersey or to Dubai, and then you fly in, fly out, you hire a small team over in those countries, and that's all running there, right? And then there comes a point where they're like, oh no, Dan, we're going to get everything you've got, however you try and do it. And you go, guys, I can buy a plane ticket. Like, it's not hard. And there are other nice places in the world. So then you do move to Dubai. Then you do say, I'm going to head out to Bali or Singapore or anywhere that offers you a digital nomad visa or anywhere that offers you.
But as far as like Great Britain as a sort of nation and proud to be English, proud to be British, proud to be part of this movement where we've had growth years where GDP's grown sort of 3, 5, 10%.
Okay, why are we proud to be British? Because throughout all of history, we were on the cutting edge of technology revolutions. The Industrial Revolution was a technological revolution that we led the world in, right? We exported technology. We exported thought leadership around court systems and ways of doing democracy, modern legal system, judiciary, right? We exported all of that. Industrial Revolution, we exported all of that. We should be proud of that. The banking systems, right? So all of that came from Britain. Then we led the world in media. We created some of the world's best music libraries. We created some of the world's best television and movie libraries. So we were.
I suppose that's my question. As we've held on to these last dying bits of like precision engineering with Rolls-Royce and everything else has gone to China, like
automotive, right?
Are we going to have that next curve?
Well, it really comes down to, do we embrace the core British success strategy of being a country that embraces technology, AI, right? It's ours to lose, but the way that we lose it is we repel the people who lead it by taxing them too much.
And your gut instinct at the minute is, do you think that's the way we go, or do you think?
Well, we're about to have 5 years of Labour.
Well, I mean, yeah. Being the explicit question is, where do you think we'll go? Labour or Conservative, or even a hung government could even be like a curveball.
Everyone feels politically homeless. Everyone holds.
And do Labour come in as this new? They've completely changed their colours, and they bring us on this growth journey, or do we go completely the other way and we end up back supporting the bottom of the market?
It's very hard because Labour is just full of woke idiots who their main agenda is some really random thing that only a small percentage of the country actually cares about. Or, Labour used to be about making sure that workers got paid fairly.
Absolutely,
that was the cornerstone. How many people in the
Conservative used to be about capitalism and let's go all guns blazing, but now we seem to be in this muddied water where
exactly
everyone's in the middle. Nobody wants to say anything wrong,
and they don't recognise that they're actually on the same team. That they both want prosperity, and they're looking at it through a different lens. They're just point scoring against each other. The other thing too is that good people used to end up in politics. There was plenty of good people who wanted a career in politics. Now you'd have to be an idiot to be in politics. Because why on earth would you want to be there with the way it's run right now? So all the people who are smart enough to run a business, smart enough to be in top corporate positions are in top corporate positions. So you're left with socialists, you're left with people
and politicians. It's like the most dangerous thing about politics is politics. So if you're a trained politician.
Who would be attracted to it? Narcissists, control freaks who want to control other people's lives, narcissists who think they're important but can't validate that anywhere else. People who are corrupt, right? So Rishi Sunak has allocated 10 billion to his family businesses. So Infosys has got 2.5 billion. Moderna's got 10 billion. So he's 12.5 billion worth of funding off to family businesses.
And that's the problem, isn't it? It's not run like a business.
Right.
I mean, Alan Sugar, I remember he was campaigning back in the day. People like saying, oh, why didn't you become Prime Minister?
Because you'd need your head read.
Because you need, in order for an economy to
Well,
succeed, you need to be able to run it like a business, but they won't let you run it like a business because it's
and
politics.
the basic thing is prime minister gets 140,000. That is not even a middle manager at KPMG,
Yeah,
right?
or 20-year-old selling stuff on
If you're
Amazon.
yeah, right. So if you're a partner at KPMG, if you're a partner at PwC, you're on 600,000 a year. So why would anyone who can run even just like, these aren't even complicated businesses. These partnerships, like being a partner at KPMG doesn't mean much, right? It's not like you're some brilliant genius. You've just been around for a while. So £600,000 is what they pay partners at KPMG. Why would you cut that down but this country's rabid when it comes to, if you were to suggest that the prime minister should be on 1.4 million a year, right?
Yeah, you get shot down.
You'd be completely shot down. But this country, we're happy to pay footballers millions, but we then complain about the leaders, the people who we attract into leadership positions in this country. Why don't we have a, great leader? Because any great leader wants a million a year. Why wouldn't they? Right?
Yeah. Nice. You're up. Yeah, you're up. That was a good one. Oh, just one final question, because it's remotely related, but I don't want to forget it. Is when you talk about the two-speed economy and going to the cloud, I was in our studio in Nottingham last week, and first time ever tried on the Meta headset. Oh my God. I was more anxious than anything. I couldn't believe. You think
How good it is.
when you talk about we're going into that cloud,
Yeah.
do you think you extrapolate that curve out enough that there is no friction at all? You don't fit, and we become brains in jars in this meta world where everyone's because you look at,
You might already be that.
you're in the you're in the virtual world trading this virtual stuff that doesn't actually exist, and then you come off and you look at your actual life and you're like, well, it's just metaverses all the way down.
Yeah. I don't know. They're only selling half as many of those things as they anticipated. Apple
Which I think is a touch.
Yeah.
Like, it's good. That's good news, because if everyone got
Yeah.
on that and you started living in it, you think TikTok's addictive. Wait till you get in there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this will happen, right? So one of the things that will happen is that artificial intelligence is going to create hyper creators and hyper consumers. If you're a hyper creator, life gets better and better every year. If you're a hyper consumer, AI basically tricks you into consuming more and more stuff. And it's harder and harder every year because AI wants you to watch more stuff on Netflix, and it wants you to listen to more stuff on Spotify, and it wants you to buy more stuff on Amazon. And if you think about an AI chess player versus a real chess player, AI wins every time. If you think about an AI that's designed to get you to consume stuff you didn't think you were going to consume, AI is going to win every time. It's going to out chess you at buying stuff, watching stuff, listening to stuff. So
is there anything that humans can't out chess AI in?
Not at a macro level, no. But there are going to be hyper creators. Hyper creators are people who use AI to create stuff and scale it fast. But the majority of people will become hyper consumers, where AI uses them to consume more stuff.
Nice. We'll come back to this. You're around. You're up.
What do you think is the biggest opportunities in the world right now?
Okay, so yeah, really nicely following on from what we're talking about. The space that I'm not in, but I absolutely know I need to be in, is tech and AI. And when we talked earlier before we started recording about the various investments I'm in, pretty much all of the businesses that I'm invested in, or the investments that I've done that are nothing to do with me, are all tech and AI. So for example, investing with yourself, came in as a second round angel for Score App.
Are you in Book Magic?
Not in Book Magic. Missed that one, didn't I? Where was the invite for that?
Made it filled up real fast.
Oh, right. Okay, I remember that. And just looking at it, it's just an obvious. You just look at tech and AI, and I suppose I think that's a huge opportunity. I think the wealth gap in the UK splitting is not just an opportunity, it's a threat. I'm just seeing more. I can just see disposable income coming down. It's death by 1,000 cuts. How to capitalize in that space, whether it means going abroad for 5 years, making your money in Dubai and coming back to start a family. For me, it's more, luckily I got across the chasm before the market turned, and I rode that 15, 20 years from the last recession. Thankfully banked enough assets that actually the problems at the bottom of the market, as sad as it is to say, are actually paying for the people at the top, basically who own the properties and own the businesses. I would say they're the two main things I'm seeing. And if I was younger and didn't have family ties and was in my 20s again, going for that quick money, I would probably go into tech, AI, the cloud stuff you've talked about, or I would go to another country.
Yeah. Hang around with people who see it. Yeah. So I think the biggest opportunity at the moment is AI enabled SaaS. So, and especially B2B, business to business software as a subscription service that's AI enabled. So, the model that I see that works, that is brilliant, is this idea that you take user input, so whatever the customer is putting into the mix, mixed with some sort of blueprint framework, your intellectual property, that forms the basis of a prompt that goes over to a large language model, um, or
Is
an
that
act.
what Book Magic is? Reading between the lines.
Yeah,
Is
that's
it
the
AI
and score
focused?
up, right?
Okay, yeah.
So user data or user inputs, proprietary IP layer over to a AI, sends it off there, gets something back that's that's better than what it sent over, sends it back to the platform then presents it back to the user, and suddenly the user has given it a little bit of information and has got a lot of cool stuff back. So they've the beauty of AI and large language models is this idea that small amounts of inputs yield massive amounts of outputs. You plant a seed and you get a crop of fruit, right? So it's this ability to plant a little seed, a prompt, and get back a harvest. So if you think about any software business that fits that description, where you're essentially combining your intellectual property with something that the user tells you about themselves with a AI model in a platform. So once you've got that, you can then go subscription model, three-tier subscription, typically 39 a month, 69 a month, 99 a month, something along those lines. And then you need something like 1,000 to 3,000 customers in total to be at 1 million. Once you hit 1 million of ARR or 100,000 a month of monthly recurring revenue, you can then just break it up into an amount for ongoing development, an amount for management, amount for customer success, an amount for growth. And kind of those amounts are then big enough for the business to just scale indefinitely at that point.
Where does the curve get to a point though? Because it's like at the minute, this old antiquated world is like the Titanic, and people are building old school handwriting book companies are on the way out. All the guys who are getting into this second speed economy are jumping off, starting AI bookmaking, and you only pay 40 quid a month and you get
hmm
this. All of a sudden, the competition comes in there, and is it a race to the bottom on price and everything just becomes free, or where does the edge?
Well, we've seen this several times before. In the early 2000s, if you were involved in websites, email marketing, or CRM, you were going to do really, really well. You're going to make millions. And then at the end of the 2000s, if you had those businesses, you got bought for tens of millions to hundreds of millions to billions. And then at the end, in the 2010s, if you were doing something to do with mobile apps, cloud computing, those types of things, right? So anything mobile kind of related, um, you got in and you had 5 years of creativity, and then you had 5 years of acquisitions, and
Then
basically,
where what does the world look like after this? Like AI replaces all this stuff that's obvious, from writing books to writing
running
copy.
governments,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
where does it
audit,
stop?
accounting, legal.
Maybe not even where does it stop, because we can speculate that, and there's all sorts of like theories about it. But where does it go? Where is it in 5 years?
So
Where's the
what?
or where to flip the question on you? Where is the opportunity after applying this new supercharged drug to every single bit of the economy? What happens after that?
Look, to a degree, I'm just focused on the opportunity that's here,
Okay.
which is crystal clear to me. What happens next? It's a little bit like saying, if you're a farmer and you start seeing a steam powered tractor or a combustion engine tractor, and you go, holy smokes, 4 people can now do the job of 100 people in plowing this field. We don't need 100 people to plow the field. We can just simply plow the field with these 4 people on a tractor. So then you go, well, we need to get the tractor plowing the field. And then you go, well, where's everyone going to go? Like 100 people, what are those 96 people going to do who
They're going
don't?
to create new jobs that
Right.
don't already exist.
Well, they're going to go and join the Industrial Revolution, and then they're going to say, we're going to manufacture shirts.
Yeah.
You go, well, a shirt takes 14 hours. And you go, not with a sewing machine, it takes 2 hours. You go, but what are we going to do with all the extra shirts, right? There's tailoring, right? What are we going to do with that? Well, people are going to go and create new jobs, and they're going to create new things. And there's going to be a whole different world. Well, what's it going to be like? Well, there's going to be music, there's going to be movies, there's going to be this sort of stuff. So look, what comes after AI, like, virtual reality TV shows, your ability to create your own Simpsons episodes that are hilarious to you, but no one else, right? There's all sorts of stuff that could come next. But it's like trying to see around a corner because, what comes next in the second order consequences of what we're about to go through,
And do you think it will like it will hit that exponent? The curve will hit that exponential, like in the short
it's
term.
already
Like
happening.
it is, yeah.
Yeah, it's already happening. So there's no reason, like, it's just a matter of mathematics. It's like saying, Dan, do you really think, agriculture will be done by tractors? Or do you think we might swing back to 100 people in the field? It's like, no, 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 it's going to be
Yeah,
tractors.
yeah.
Right? Of course, it's going to be tractors. So,
Genie's out of the bottle.
yeah, the genie's out the bottle. The cost efficiencies are there. Um, so,
And do you feel optimistic about it? Because if you extrapolate again, if you just keep pulling this stuff out, it's at the minute, like reading a lot of stuff Elon Musk's sort of written about it, his biggest issue at the minute is chips and energy. You think, right, if we're getting to the stage where the only limiting factor is how much information can we process and how much
mm,
energy can we give it, it does become this then superpower where you just start to think, do you feel like optimistic about all that and it feels good, or does it concern you and you feel anxious about it?
um, I love stoicism where you
Don't think about
don't
anything,
try
don't
and
feel
worry
about
about
anything.
that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just try to control what you can control. So you
yeah.
focus your attention on what can I control, and you don't try and focus your attention on like the anxiety of like, oh my goodness, what happens when we generate? What happens when we send solar farms out into space and they beam energy back to Earth, and we have massive computers that sit there in orbit and do all that sort of stuff? It's like, well, we'll see what happens when that happens. There's a very, very good chance that life moves towards the type of life that only multimillionaires currently live is the type of life that everyone lives.
If
So,
they're
like,
playing the game right.
yeah, like, let's take this. You and I are doing something pretty weird right now, which is we're sitting down and having a podcast in a studio. We think that's valuable. You think this is a good use of your time, and I think this is a good use of my time for some weird reason. And we call this our job. Now, a very tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of people would ever in a million years think that this is a job, right?
But it's
Really?
actually like go back in time. If you read, there's a great book called Frugal Hedonism, and the concept of work is alien. Like they would look on us now and say, "What have you guys done with this? Like you've ruined the place." Because they would go to work, they'd farm, they'd do whatever,
Hmm.
trade with the neighbours, and that was life. Whereas we've created, especially post-industrial revolution, this
Yeah. So there will be different versions of jobs, but a lot of the jobs that we will see will look like things that seem indulgences now. So, for example, hosting a TED conference where you get 60 people in a room, either real or virtual, and you sit around talking about ideas and sniffing your own farts. And at the end of the conference, everyone goes, "Oh, that was amazing! Right? Oh, fabulous! Oh, your farts smell amazing. My farts smell amazing. Great, fantastic! Right?" And everyone's somehow that's become a job, right? So
like
somehow that
podcast, like I said about
having a
podcasting.
podcast becomes a job. Having a YouTube channel becomes a job. Some of the highest paid people I know right now have YouTube channels, and
Interesting.
that's their job.
Very interesting. Yeah, we'll see where it goes. But similar to you, well, different to you, I can worm myself into a frenzy with it, and I just quickly wake up and think it's not happening today. It's I remember chatting
Stoicism.
to my partner about the economy, and she hears me doing podcasts about politics and the economy, and she says, is it really this extreme? What am I actually going to notice in my life? And I said, really, you're going to get up, you're going to go to the shops. You're not going to see a huge difference. Let's switch direction. Diary of a CEO podcast. So
Mm.
you did a Diary of a CEO podcast with Stephen Bartlett recently. Just be interested to know, how did that come about? What was the experience like? Has it given you huge reach? Maybe like we talked about earlier, people think they're going to write a book and make 100 grand a month. Actually, it's part of a bigger thing. And also profile. I don't know why, and I might be completely off the mark. We must know each other about 15 years now, and my consistent perception is that you've always been more about paid marketing, sponsored ads, click funnels, scorecards. And I've always gone down the organic route, and they've been very different. And again, this might just be my perception, but in the last few years, you seem to have pivoted. Maybe it's only because I've only just started following you on Instagram, but you've gone from zero to hundreds of thousands of followers in a couple of years. You're on Stephen Partlett's podcast. Is it a shift in perspective, and actually you've now doing organic and paid, or have you always done both? And
That's a lot of questions in there. I gotta make a list. How did it come about? He
cool.
he randomly DM'd me. It was
Okay,
freaking amazing.
nice.
So he just messages me on Instagram and says, "Hey, I've been watching your videos on YouTube. would you like to come on the pod? And I'm like, that's a scam. That's not really him. And then I respond and we start chatting on DMs and he says, yeah. And then his team get in touch with my team and they say, yeah, we can film on Monday. Now I'm over in Closters skiing with my family and it's Friday. And they're like, yeah, we can film Monday. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm flying back to London for a day. So I fly back for the day, film it, and then fly back and meet up with the family in the snow.
Perfect.
And then the following Thursday, it's out. And then it has 1.9 million views in the first few weeks, and 14,000 people add me on LinkedIn, and the businesses have just boomed as a result.
So it has seen that sort of
Massively.
nuclear.
Yeah, no, it's minimum already generated £1 million. Like it's been £1 million thing. And we're only a few months in, a couple of months in. Yeah.
And it was my reading on your your activity in organic and paid accurate? Have you always done both?
So I've always my whole background was paid, right? I started my first business running ads in newspapers, and I've always seen the value in Facebook ads, and you got to get good at it. But I've always been a believer that you should spend at least 8% of revenue back into ads, back into growth. So I'm a big believer in that. Over the last 10 years, I had, 3 kids, 3 little kids. So I had to really prioritize my time with 3 little children. But they've just hit the youngest is now 5 turning 6. So I've hit a new phase of life where I've just got a little bit more time and a little bit more energy. So I'm just like, okay, let's bring back a bit of organic and, let me get out, speak at more things, get on more podcasts.
And how do you think they compare?
They go well together.
They do.
Yeah, they're not. They complement each other. So people who've seen your organic stuff get reminded by the ads that you exist, and they're like, "Oh, I watched the podcast with that guy. I forgot about him." And then, so the ads perform better when the organic is out there. And same sort of thing when you have a lot of ads out there, people start to notice you, and they find you on the organic stuff, and they go, "Oh, wait a sec, I've heard of this guy." So it's kind of like saying, oh, should Nike promote their products or should they sponsor athletes? It's like, do both.
Yeah. And Stephen Bartlett's absolutely crushing it. Like
he is on fire.
He's gone on this bull run, and fair play to him.
He works. He works.
I was good. Well, that was going to be my question. Is
he doesn't do anything? But he works and he goes to the gym.
He's investing in lots of other things. Also, from his, I have sort of not listened to until you sent me the link with you on it. And saying you were going to go on it. I hadn't listened to him for a while, but it did get me back into it. And he seems to have changed tack because he went through a stage a couple of years ago, asking all the deep questions about entrepreneurship, like the ones I've been asking you since 2019 of what's the meaning of life? Are we all broken children? And I was just thinking, is this guy actually just torturing himself and struggling? And I don't know whether he was coming out of a spot, but now he seems to have shifted gear and he seems to be on face value loving it again. And he's doing deals, he's investing. Is he in a sweet spot or is he having growing pains? Or
well, the spot that he's in, and I can relate to this because I've been through it as well, is this thing called having the tiger by the tail. And when you've got the tiger by the tail, you don't let go, and you suck it up and you make the most of it. When you're having a moment, you have that moment. Like, go for the moment. So, people talk about work-life balance, and what they don't realize is that there's 2 types of working hard. There's working hard because you're trying to push a boulder up a hill. And then there's working hard because you're trying to keep up with the boulder that's rolling down behind you. And there comes like in 2005, I had the tiger by the tail.
What does that mean as a metaphor? I've heard it before. I don't actually know what it means.
It means you're on something that's a bit out of control. Right, you're on a winner. You're on a. There's something's happening that's out of your control, but you seem to be right there on it.
Okay.
So what it feels like.
So it's a good thing, but you're just not in control of it, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like so what's happening for Stephen is he's got like 50 million followers a month, 50 million views a week happening, and he's got. Every single night of the week, he could be doing a $50,000 speaking engagement. He could turn up, he could literally do every night of the week.
That KPI, sweet spot, top of the mountain. Yeah, he can have whatever he wants. The problem is he can't have it all.
He can launch a book and it'll go straight to number 1. He can launch a Netflix show, it'll go straight to number 1. He can launch a product and that product will hit. He can click his fingers and raise 20 million for a fund. So he's in that. He's got it all happening. The momentum, the flywheel is spinning so fast. It takes most entrepreneurs are just in that. Let me give you another metaphor. So rockets have three phases, right? So phase one is liftoff, where you're just trying to get off the platform. Then you hit escape velocity, where you explode into the atmosphere. And then there's re-entry, where you come and have a smooth landing from it all. So most of the conversation around business and entrepreneurship is around liftoff. How do you get started?
Yeah.
What most people never experience is escape velocity, which is where things just go stratospheric. And then exit or smooth landing, where you return to Earth and it's smooth and it was a great journey and you've now got the badge to show for it. So, what most people are overly focused on is liftoff, but they're not thinking about how they build something that will ever have escape velocity and exit.
And strategically, because you've told me that story before, and we've talked about the layers, and actually, we may have time to talk about it. If not, we'll talk about it over lunch. But um, where if you were to be Stephen Bartlett's consultant, because you've seen that play out a million times, it's hard for him because for the first time he's got his doors being knocked down with 7, 8, 9 figure opportunities. Strategically, what would your advice be to him?
When you're trying to find your purpose, you should say yes to a lot of things because you're looking. When you've found your purpose, you should say no to a lot of things. Um, So he has to kind of his winning strategy for getting to where he was saying yes to a lot. His losing strategy right now will be saying yes to too much.
Which does on face value looks like it,
Yeah.
looks like that's the case.
So some of the winning
Would that, would,
strategies,
would you, is that your perception that he's in that danger zone at the minute where he
yeah, absolutely. He
overcommits?
he publicly posts stuff where says he's close to burnout,
Okay.
right? So he's put that on his Instagram. Um, my recommendation, for example, would be to surround yourself with a few very key people who help manage this. So rather than you saying yes to opportunities, it has to go to maybe a committee or two people or three people who it's like, whether, like you have a deliberate conversation about what we're trying to achieve. You get really, really clear. It might take you 2 or 3 days to get really, really clear. What are we actually trying to achieve here? What does success look like? You create a very, very clear picture of that. Um, and then you remove the emotion from every decision by having two or three people who filter decisions for you. Because the problem is that to get into Stephen's position, you have to be a yes man. You have to say yes to a lot. You have to put your own personal desires aside and just say, "Yep, let's do it. Let's try it. Let's do it." But you need gatekeepers around you when you're in that position because you will just naturally want to say yes to too many things, and the gatekeepers have to be the ones who negotiate everything,
Well, somebody sent
pin
me a
it
link the
down.
other day because he started a new, he's an investor in a new company. I think it's a podcasting company.
Well, he's executing a very smart strategy. So he's got Flight Fund and Flight Media.
Okay.
So Flight Media is to build massive audiences across 50 different platforms and 50 different speakers and 50 personalities, right? So he's going to build a massive media bridge, right? Huge numbers. He's going to multiply by 20 with Flight Media. Then Flight Fund
Yeah.
is to
Of course. Yeah.
buy scalable companies that can keep up with that level of opportunity. So to buy up companies that can scale.
It's like the modern day Berkshire Hathaway, or more recently Tiny. Tiny seem, although they're not cross
It's
pollinating,
definitely what
they're
he's creating is the new he's creating a new approach to private equity. So essentially, he's very good at picking companies that can scale, that can he's looking for companies that can achieve escape velocity and exit. So things like Whoop bands, where you can deliver it in the mail and people can wear the Whoop band and they buy the Whoop band and then pay a subscription.
And how does he crack that middle bit that private equity probably nobody ever cracks? Is the idea is fantastic, the market opportunity is there, but breaking through to
Mm,
that sort of high performance
mm.
business.
You know who cracked this?
Who?
Branson. Branson was the
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Branson was the first one to do branded private equity. So he made 500 million from an exit,
yeah.
which
Licensing deal.
in today's money would be 5 billion. And he basically said, "We're going to create a brand with a personal brand and a business brand. And what we're going to do is do a branded private equity play." But he basically did it with his brand and his personality. Bartlett's about to do it with 50 personalities. The brand can be agnostic, and he's going to build. What will happen in the next few years if he gets this right will be exit after exit after exit. He's going to have like a year that he does like 5 exits
Yeah,
for.
get them up that growth curve, sell it to maturity, and
It's like
then
we
somebody
sold
else
this
can
one
take
for
it and run it.
300 million. We sold this one for 600 million. We sold this one for 1.2 billion. We sold like kind of like Ryan Reynolds is also doing this.
I mean, he smashed it,
Yeah.
especially with the football club. A friend sent me the link to end the, what's that?
2 sporting teams he's done.
What was that? To end the round. A friend sent me the link the other day of Stephen Bartlett doing the podcast interview or the podcast investment. And he said, "Oh, how is this guy doing all this stuff?" And I sent a message back, which was a great soundbite. And I'm actually going to do a podcast on it, which was when you don't have money, you have to spend time. So you have to work your ass off to get the money. When you've got the money and the profile, you then invest your money, don't you? And it's like you're the top of a very big triangle.
You've got a value proposition that's built on leverage. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you don't need to put your time in. In fact, it's backwards. You use your money rather than your time.
Let's continue this with a very similar one, which is building a personal brand.
Okay.
So
Nice.
let's talk about like how do people build a personal brand? What should you be thinking about? Is it too late?
Well, you didn't say this to me, but I used KPI, your book and your blueprint 15 years ago to get the flywheel going, understand it. And since then, one of the things I've
You
said...
must have been one of the very first, because that book came out, must have been 14 years ago. It came out in 2010.
Yeah, 2012, we did it. So
Okay, there you go.
So yeah,
12 years ago.
12 years ago. So
by the way, personal brand has become the big thing now.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I suppose I don't know if it's easier or harder now. Now it seems easy, but we've got brands.
Yeah.
So the idea of picking a phone up
14 years ago, who wrote the book on it?
Yeah, there you go. You own the space. And one of the things I say now, which is so true, is without a doubt, I am an investor. My job is to invest in businesses and property. Is the highest return on investment anyone will ever get, myself included, is in having a profile.
Yeah.
Because the input is so low, but the output is so high. To get to a position where you can pick up the phone and speak to anyone in your industry and they're glad to hear from you and it costs you nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the alternative is you're pitching, you're competing on price. To me, it's a non-negotiable. If you want to break into the top levels, it's a non-negotiable.
I don't know how you do it without a personal brand now. And you would have to be seriously independently rich to not have a personal brand.
Yeah, agreed. And I think my brand's followed my success and it's probably been a couple of steps ahead. But the other thing is, especially now with social media and content creation, it's so accessible and so cheap.
Yeah.
Perception's reality. I can see people who create Instagram profiles go into the 6 figures in 12 months because they understand how to produce content. It's their job.
Ultimately, the only people who can pay you money are people. There's no cats or dogs with credit cards. There's no robots with credit cards. There's just people with credit cards. So, or bank accounts. So money and success is just completely linked to how many people know who you are and how many people trust you and understand what you're on about.
Charge high prices.
Right? All of that. Talent. The big one's talent. So the thing about anyone who's got a personal brand right now is that they're surrounded by 8 people who are awesome. Right? They've got this team of people around them who are like, yeah, I can execute that. I can execute that. So they attract this team of 7, 8, 9, 10 people who, as soon as an opportunity comes in, boom, I can get that done.
Listen to a podcast the other day, and it's the best way I've heard you explain it, where you're talking about the Eiffel Tower.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember which podcast it was.
Well, yeah, the Eiffel Tower doesn't make any money.
It just stands there.
But it just sits there. And then around the Eiffel Tower, you've got the best businesses, the best restaurants, the best hotels, all of that stuff. Anything close to the Eiffel Tower is going to boom, and it's going to boom just because it's close to the Eiffel Tower.
Exactly.
So
the Eiffel Tower's job is to stay solid, stay polished, and make sure people want to keep coming.
Yeah, and no one goes to Paris to spend their money on the Eiffel Tower, right? They go to Paris to be around the businesses that are around the Eiffel Tower. So when you build a personal brand, you don't have to sell your time. You don't have to be a coach. You don't have to be a consultant. You don't have to be the person that everyone wants to actually spend. Like, you don't have to deliver the stuff. You just have businesses around you. Look at Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds, he's got his football teams and they're booming, and he's got his credit card payments business and that's booming. He's got his mobile phone business that's booming. So he's just basically saying, yeah, if you put a business around me, it'll boom. It makes no sense. Like the Eiffel Tower makes no sense. Like big hunk of steel.
To flip the coin on its head as well and show you the other side is yes, everyone can become a KPI now and raise a profile, but also the longer you maintain your profile and you don't get, because also it's more dangerous nowadays. If you're not legit, you're going to get found out. And even if it's not true, everyone's going to find out pretty quick. When you can chalk up a few years or a couple of decades
Mm.
with an immaculate reputation, that brand equity is significant, isn't it?
Uh,
And there's a danger in it going wrong. So like
if you
someone
take
like
the Stephen Bartlett opportunity,
yeah,
when his team did the research, they go, this guy's written 6 books. He's had all these businesses. He's been talking about this stuff. Like we can see him publishing this stuff back 15 years ago. We can't find anyone who's complaining. And it's like, yeah, bring him on the show. So there comes this point where you get benefits along the way, but if you do it for 10 years and you get to 10 years of building a personal brand and staying strong with a key idea, staying focused, not taking quick wins, not doing dumb stuff, right? Not chasing squirrels, not screwing up your reputation. If you stick with it for 10 years, something magic happens, which is then the big boys come and play.
yeah. And it is a danger zone. It's very hard. And I remember again, you and I must have had a conversation 7 or 8 years ago, and I said to you, "What do I do with all these opportunities?" And you said, "Oh, well, you've reached the point where everyone wants to buy you lunch. They'll pay for you to fly to thingy locations." And I was like, "Well, this is living the dream." But actually, it's created with this new environment, which is quite hard to navigate because everyone wants to speak to you. They want to pay for everything. They want to give you business opportunities, and it's quite seductive. But then that can be a downfall. I remember Jamie Oliver had it with his restaurants
Yeah.
and then he tries to recover from the restaurants with the like Shell petrol station deal
Yeah.
where his sandwiches were in the petrol station. I was thinking, this is a guy who's
Well,
desperate for
unfortunately,
cash.
we talked about talent. Unfortunately, he stuck the wrong person in to run the business.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, he put his brother-in-law in.
Okay, yeah.
And this was the moment that he should have got his hands on the best person he possibly could, who could run a big empire. This is not a time to bring brother-in-law in. Brother-in-law could have been
Had
there.
the best restaurants in the world or like the best cookbooks,
Yeah,
not have crappy sandwiches for £2 in Shell.
Yeah. And the other thing too is you really have to get to the point where you have people around you who slap you around a bit. You've got to have people who have been
Don't
around
get high on your own supply.
exactly that, right? So you got to recognize, hey, you're off brand here. You're off message. I know you want to talk about this nonsense thing. This is not something you should be talking about. This is not you. This is not your brand. This is just something that you're doing because you're
We're
bored.
thinking about Mike Tyson fighting Jake Paul on a brand sense. A little bit of a curveball.
Well, personally, I think it's genius.
Do you think it's genius? Do you think he needs the money?
Well, probably he does, right?
And is that going to be
Tyson has a long-term reputation for spending everything he's got.
Yeah, I mean, he went bankrupt.
He's a boom buster.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He's also, look, he's making himself relevant. He's staying relevant in a new decade.
But is that the way to do it with a brand? What happens if he loses? Is that going to add value to the brand or is it going to be detrimental? Conor McGregor's like not far behind as another case study.
Well, Conor McGregor is transitioning into movies. He's just been in a Hollywood.
He's got the opportunity to save that brand from.
Yeah.
If he keeps turning up at the UFC and
there's a
getting
difference
beat,
there's a difference with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's brand already got smashed when he bit that guy's ear and he lost a fight there, right? So he can only bounce back from this.
Well, I would say he has bounced back over the last few years, becoming this new version, which Conor McGregor might do. But
yeah. I mean,
is he fallen into bad habits?
Well, here's the thing. Tyson is a fighter, right? He's staying true to his brand. He's being a fighter. He's demonstrating a new, it's attractive to his original fans that he would fight someone who's in the new, especially a Gen Zer, right? What baby boomer doesn't want to punch a Gen Zer in the face?
Yeah.
So that's perfect for them, right? So he's making himself relevant to a new audience who've never heard of him.
As far as the risk strategy, is that low risk, medium, high risk? I'd say it's high risk.
Well, look, if he loses, he's still one of the greatest fighters who ever lived, and he lost in his 50s, right? So, and I'm sure they'll kiss and make up. The fact that he's still out there, I think he'll walk away. There'll be benefits, and the amount of
Even
money
if he loses.
Yeah, and the amount of money, and he's put himself back on the stage. He's put himself back in the limelight.
I think when we talk about short-term, quick wins, cashing in, everyone wants to buy you lunch. Absolutely, he's going to get a payday. I don't think it's good for the brand.
Well, here's the other thing, though. No, I saw some footage of him.
Opening his Tyson Ranch and going capitalising on all the
No,
cannabis markets and all that. That seems like a good idea.
something magical has happened with Tyson. I saw him on the streets with his original fans, and they're all his age, they're all a bit older, and he's out there and he's in the best shape of his life. He's gotten himself really fit. He's gotten himself fighting, he's throwing fast punches. He's got the sparkle, he's got the twinkle in his eye about doing this. Something's happened where he's energized by this. You can see he's energized by this, and people are energized by this. People who want to see him, they want to see him compete again and do it with a bit of glory because he did it with a lot of shame last time. So he's going to step in and be a different guy. I think what I like about this is that I can see him being authentic. That this is real for him. This is for him. This feels like a good thing to do. You can see that. So you know,
It's interesting. I mean, we could debate it all day because also it's if you watch the two Joe Rogan interviews with him, one where he was like very spiritual and soft, but completely out of shape and not a good look, clearly upset and emotional. That was one Mike Tyson. Now he's got his ego back and he's gone savage mode and he's putting his brand to this fight. I can't help but think it's a cash grab and he needs the money. But also for his brand, it's like the reason his reputation went down last time is because he had a bad end to his career, like Conor McGregor. I think
bad sports person. He bit the guy.
yeah, and that he lost a decade then in bad reputation. Yeah, it's Brandon. Once finished, nice one to finish. Then we'll go for some lunch. Lifestyle. So you always strike me as somebody that's cool, calm, collected, chilled. I know you have challenging days here and there, but I would say your default is stoic, cruise control, quite present. I've come to you since 2019 and been searching. I've done the beast mode. I've worked really hard. Dan, where's this amazing personal life? Like, why am I not happy? I've got all the things that I wanted to get, but I'm still not satisfied. And I feel like I've finally now turned a corner and I've actually stepped up to the next level of the sort of chairman level and got that board in now, which you advised me to do probably 5 years ago. And I can totally see now how you can have it all. You can have all these businesses. I remember you said to me, it's easier to own 10 businesses than it is to own 2.
Yeah, that's true. Or
What is your lifestyle like? What's your day-to-day like? What do you think of beast mode?
My life's great. I'm married to an amazing woman. I've got 3 lovely kids. We got a nice fluffy cat that loves me. Comes up and rubs up against my leg every day, and I give her a cuddle. I've got I live in for me, what is my dream home, right?
Do you walk around smelling the roses, happy, daydreaming all day, or are you stressed, or
no,
are you just very easy come, easy go?
I found a good rhythm that's right for me.
What does that look like?
So into the diary each week, you'll have 3 good personal training sessions go into the diary. So I'm training with a trainer, which keeps me feeling good. I take the kids to school every morning and do the school run. And I tend to do bedtime, bath time.
Are you famous at the school yet? Do you roll up to the gates and feel like
some of them did the whole? Some of them watched the Stephen Bartlett thing. A lot of people like Stephen. So it was cool
nice.
That was cool.
Good for you.
I've got an assistant, Susie, who screens out most of the stuff that's not right for me, and I don't even know about it. So I don't get anxious about, am I doing this or not? I just do it's in my diary. So Susie and I will talk about what I'm trying to achieve in the next 90 days and what I'm trying to achieve in 3 years from now. And so she understands where my head's at. And then it's her job to kind of filter stuff and negotiate stuff and get the right things into the diary.
What's the volume of like work like?
4 things a day.
And any sort of like working hours, or is it 4 or 5 hours a day?
Today we do a podcast in the morning.
Yeah.
Then we go to lunch.
Yeah.
And then I've got a really cool first meeting with a big influencer in the US who wants to have me on the show and also wants to talk business coaching. And then I've got a shoulder injury, so I'm off to a shoulder thing. And then I head home, and then late tonight, 9:30 p.m, I'll have a little half-hour Zoom call with the team in Australia and the team. It's a good time for Australia and Canada and UK to all sync up at about 9:30 tonight. So we'll sync up and have a little chat about some stuff that's in the works on Zoom.
How like sizable or frequent are the problems that land on your desk?
Not a lot, not a lot. We're pretty smooth running organization. We got talent. It's mostly our biggest problem is too much good stuff. We just have
Yeah.
we just have too many good things happening, and we got to choose what we say yes to and what we say no to.
What does create stress?
Oh, like frustrated. Oh, I've got to be in Miami for a high paid speaking gig, and the same time they want me in Dubai for a high paid speaking
So
gig,
it's
or
for real first world problems.
very first world problems, mate.
What
The other thing too. Look, here's the other thing. I don't have a huge desire for material things. I've got an X5 car, and I've got a little
does
two.
that make you good at business, or does that add value to you as a entrepreneur, somebody who's focused on making money, or does it make you
Um,
laissez-faire and relaxed?
I'm not really focused on making money. I'm just focused on following the fun, following the thread, um, delivering delivering the thing I said I would deliver. Right. So I said that I was going to talk about being an entrepreneur and helping people to become entrepreneurs. So I deliver on that. I said I'd talk to people about key person of influence. I do.
Who
Um,
looks over your shoulder and sort of makes sure that the books are balanced?
Um, well, the my wife tells me off all the time if I'm off brand or off topic, or if I'm getting on one about a political issue, and she's like, "Don't get too political,
Okay.
right?
I feel like that about Dubai at the minute. I need to shut up about Dubai.
Stay in your lane." No, I've been talking about that as well, but
Okay.
I've been talking about it from an entrepreneur's perspective.
Same.
I've also been talking about overtaxing entrepreneurs and all that sort of stuff. So
If
I
you
try,
looked at the culture of Dubai and put that into the culture of a business,
yeah,
it would be what you want. But
yeah,
anyway, let's not.
staying in my lane. So Elena's great for that. Susie also slaps me around with stuff as
That's
well.
good.
Yeah, so I've got a few people, and I've got business partners who
And you don't ever have any conflict of getting sucked into the teams who are scaling these big sort of
no.
eight figure nine.
Think of me as having a value proposition to an organization. I'm a product, right, called a founder and a key person of influence for that brand. So I have a very clear value proposition as to what I bring to the business, and I don't do other things other than that value
And they don't
proposition.
try and pull you in. You don't
Yeah,
ever find yourself creeping into it.
it's. I wouldn't go to my lawyer and say, "Can you help me with my accounting?" I wouldn't go to my lawyer and say, "Can you help me with, the IT systems?" People don't come to me unless it's my value proposition for the business.
Well, that's good.
So
And
I have a value proposition. The thing that I'm starting to swing back to, I went off track with it, is not like for a while there I didn't have causes that I was lit up by. I wasn't passionately involved in like charities and fundraising and all that sort of stuff. That's starting to come back into my life at the moment, which is really good. So I just raised 20 grand for a charity that does martial arts training in Kenya and Nepal, and basically works with homeless street kids to get them into a kung fu or a taekwondo style
yeah, amazing.
thing.
And there's so many value in that for you,
Well,
for them,
it feeds
for
them, it gives them confidence, gives them character building, gives them community, and it actually gives them a thing to be part of that's positive.
yeah.
And then from there they get into school, from there they get into homes, right? It's people who don't know the value of a martial arts training school would go, oh, well, why is that a priority? It's like it begins everything for self-sufficiency. It's better than school. It's better than they won't go to school, but they'll come to karate class. So anyway, found a way. We're going to work with 10,000 kids to get them off the streets and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, there's fun stuff like that that I'm starting to get. That's more of a driver for me.
And they're finally fitting family time into all of that. And I've
Loads
got
of family time.
33 days until, God permitting, my daughter arrives. Any words of wisdom? You were one of the first people I told, because we've talked about it. Endless lunches, dinners,
Yeah, yeah,
glasses of
yeah,
wine
yeah,
about should I have kids, should I not have
yeah.
kids?
Mate, the reason I'm happy is because of family. Like everything comes back to family. Like you
How much time do you spend with them?
take away everything other than that, right? I'm happy to start again with everything else, but that's the number one. Loads of time, like all the time. They're coming and going. We have a big busy house, and they're always coming and going, and we play Legos, and we ride bikes, and we go walks, and we just bought a little speedboat that we could take down to the pond, and like all sorts of fun, like little remote control thing. There's always something going on. We're having deep and meaningful chats. Mate, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but it's the best thing you'll ever do, right? Especially the first few months are hard. Your partner, she's always going to be 9 months ahead of you in terms of her bonding with the baby. You're going to have an amazing couple of weeks when the baby's born, and you'll be like, wow, this is incredible. And then reality will set in, and you'll be like, damn, what have I done? This is hard. For someone like yourself who's very competent at everything you do, you're going to find yourself very incompetent. and you say, damn, I'm a beginner at this. How do I handle this? How do I handle that? And it doesn't stop. You'll go, wait a sec, what happened to my weekends? What happened to my evenings? What happened to my mornings? What happened to my sleep? Right. So you'll probably hit a low point at 9 months, 6 months to 9 months. You'll have a, what have I done?
And follow your lead and have another one.
Right. And then you'll get through it, and then you'll have another one. Yeah. But
top tip to finish
on
on the
parenting,
parenting.
just just recognize no matter what you do, they have a lot of their own personality built in. You can shape them, you can mold them as best you can. You can be a friend and a mentor and a coach, but ultimately they are their own personalities. Especially when you have a couple, you realize that they really are their own
And they're
personalities.
just born like that.
Yeah. And recognize that being born in your family, they've already got a very strange situation to kind of like come up in your house, your brand, your all of that. So recognize that that's got challenges and benefits for them. They're going to have a hard time with that as well as a good time with that. So, radical empathy of what must it be like to grow up in a really big house, and dad's got a Rolls Royce and all that sort of stuff. They're going to have those feelings of like, well, nothing I can ever do will be on that scale because it's too much, it's too high for them to think. And then they'll also have these inadequacies of, I have to do something big or else everyone will think I'm a loser. So keep in mind that they're going to have benefits and drawbacks from being your kids, right? So yeah.
Banging. Well done. Well done, mate.